Good day, my name is Angelo and this is Channel Up, your most preferred channel where we give you updates on true crime, mystery and lifestyle. I have updates on the unfolding mystery surrounding the CBEX cryptocurrency trading platform that overtook the business platform in Nigeria a few weeks ago. In April 2025, the cryptocurrency trading platform CBEX collapsed, plunging thousands of Nigerian investors into financial devastation. The scheme had deceived its victims by posing as a legitimate government-linked business, falsely asserting registration in Canada, and fraudulently using the identity of a well-known Chinese state-owned company. By the time the scam was uncovered, enraged crowds had raided the CBEX office and regulators were rushing to mitigate the damage. This report that I am giving to you right now goes further to investigate CBEX's origin and the deceptive strategies it employed to, lure unsuspecting Nigerians and other people, the fabricated ties to Canada and China, how the fraud was uncovered, and the consequences for both victims and authorities. So before we go further, let's look at the origin and the claimed business model of the CBEX platform. Now, the CBEX platform emerged in Nigeria's investment landscape in 2023. Marketing itself as an innovative online digital trading platform for cryptocurrency assets. The platform positioned itself as a next generation crypto exchange, leveraging artificial intelligence, that is AI, to deliver high returns to its customers. Promotional content described CBEX, the short form for Crypto Bridge Exchange, as a kind of a secure and transparent global hub for digital asset trading. The operators asserted that an AI-powered trading algorithm would autonomously execute transactions for users, purportedly capitalizing on market fluctuations to generate consistent profits. Through its website and online forums, CBEX emphasized that its AI would risk only minimal portion of each investor's capital, that is approximately 1% per trade, to reduce exposure while steadily compounding gains over time. Now, that was the origin and that is the mode of operation. I would like to look at the operation in detail and what I would call the deceptive practices that CBEX employed, especially in Nigeria. Now follow me gradually. Listen, in Nigeria, CBEX was publicly fronted by a CEO named Yahaya Ibrahim. Of course, the CEO would mean the Chief Executive Officer, who claimed the company was headquartered overseas. Now, to bolster its legitimacy, the platform established physical offices in key cities such as Ibadan in Oyo State and Ikeja in Lagos State, going further to protect an image of stability and trustworthiness. Now, however, despite its professional facade, CBEX was never registered with Nigeria's Security and Exchange Commission (SEC), rendering its investment and operations very, very illegal. But in truth, CBEX operated as a classic Ponzi scheme, sustaining payouts to early investors solely with funds from new recruits with no genuine revenue stream. The platform's published website, mobile app, and aggressive marketing masked its true nature, presenting it as a cutting-edge fintech venture when its real objective was to siphon deposits before vanishing. Now, let us decipher the false claims of Canadian affiliation. A central aspect of CBEX's deceptive practices involved fabricating a Canadian affiliation to instill confidence in investors. The company's representatives consistently suggested that CBEX was either legally based in Canada or officially endorsed by Canadian authorities. Specifically, CBEX claimed to be registered in Canada as a crypto trading exchange and purportedly operating under Canadian regulatory oversight. These assertions created a misleading impression of legitimacy, leading many investors to believe CBEX was associated with a stable and well-regulated jurisdiction. However, an investigation revealed that no such company existed in official Canadian business registries. A review by Sahara reporters of Canada's official corporate databases confirmed that no entity named CBEX was registered, despite the CEO's claims of a Canadian headquarters. The only similar entity found was CBEX Capital Corp, a defunct company whose Canadian license had been revoked a year earlier and which bore no connection to the Nigerian operation. That is that. Furthermore, there is no evidence whatsoever that any Canadian government agency or regulatory body ever endorsed the CBEX platform. In fact, Canadian authorities were unaware of the scheme's existence until after it had already collapsed. The supposed Canadian affiliation existed only within CBEX's marketing narrative. By invoking the regulatory framework of a foreign government, the perpetrators exploited the credibility of Canadian financial oversight without actually being subject to it. That's just the truth about the whole thing. This strategy is a hallmark of transnational fraud schemes where references to overseas registrations make it more difficult for local investors and unsuspecting people to independently verify the claims, just like other Ponzi schemes. In CBEX's case, the deception proved very, very effective. Many Nigerians accepted the Canadian claims at face value, believing that a platform allegedly registered in Canada must be legitimate and law-abiding. In retrospect, the purported Canadian connection was nothing more than a deceptive smoke screen. That is what I would call it. One that remained largely unchallenged until the collapse of the scheme. All right. And this went further to show the misappropriation of, let's say, legitimate grounds. Now, let us see what linked them to the Chinese-owned entity and the identity linked to China. To further enhance its appearance of legitimacy, CBEX unlawfully appropriated the identity of a well-known Chinese state-owned enterprise. The name CBEX is identical to the acronym of the China Beijing Equity Exchange, a legitimate platform operated by the Beijing municipal government. The authentic China Beijing Equity Exchange, CBEX, is a recognized state-owned institution specializing in mergers, acquisitions, and the restructuring of state-owned enterprises in China. But this particular CBEX was not like that. By adopting this name, the Nigerian-based CBEX intentionally created confusion. A simple internet search for CBEX would primarily yield results related to the reputable Chinese government-backed exchange, and that was the ploy they used to deceive unsuspecting Nigerians, thereby misleading prospective investors into believing that the Nigerian entity was associated with or endorsed by the Chinese government. This tactic proved very, very effective. Many Nigerians who conducted only superficial due diligence were likely misled by the prominence and credibility of the Chinese CBEX, unaware that the Nigerian platform had merely co-opted the name to deceive the public. Now, I would quickly digest a part of this update that I feel you should know. There was an official denial from the legitimate Chinese entity. Lots of people did not know this, and I'm going to tell you and how it came about. All right. Now, the unauthorized use of the CBEX name did not go unnoticed by the genuine Chinese institution based in Beijing. In early 2024, the China Beijing Equity Exchange, CBEX, issued a public statement explicitly disassociating itself from the foreign cryptocurrency platform operating under the same name. The Chinese exchange firmly declared that it had no connection whatsoever to the overseas entity using the name CBEX. In its statement, the organization emphasized that it has never engaged in cryptocurrency trading and that it holds the exclusive rights to the CBEX trademark within China and Asia. Furthermore, it warned that legal action will be pursued against any unauthorized use of its name. At the time, the motivation behind the strongly worded announcement was quite unclear. However, it has since become evident that the clarification coincided with the emergence of the Nigerian CBEX scam. This official denial from Beijing effectively confirmed that the Nigerian platform had no affiliation whatsoever or endorsement from the Chinese government. Despite the warning and similar alerts circulated through Chinese media, most Nigerian investors likely remained unaware of the clarification until it was too late. The operators of the Ponzi scheme continued to capitalize on the name similarity, allowing the public to assume that CBEX was a Chinese state-run or government-backed project. This strategy significantly boosted the scheme's perceived credibility and played a key role in attracting victims who believed that association with the Chinese government signified trustworthiness. Now, it went further to attract Nigerian investors with unrealistic promises, and this is the part where I want you to pay more attention to. Now, CBEX experienced rapid and widespread growth across Nigeria, amassing over 15,000 investors within a matter of, let me say, months. Now, this surge was driven by aggressive marketing campaigns and the timeless appeal of effortless wealth. The platform's promotional message was straightforward and enticing. Deposit funds and watch them double within a short period of time, or build a pyramid or a community and watch yourself become richer in few days. These are always their ploy. Okay, now initially CBEX promised a 100% return on capital within 30 to 40 days, equating to an approximate daily profit of like 2.5%. Such a rate is not only unsustainable but far exceeds the bounds of legitimate investment activity, marking it as a classic indicator of a big Ponzi scheme. I must tell you, to lend credibility to these extraordinary claims, CBEX introduced its so-called super technology AI trading algorithm. This algorithm was said to conduct low-risk, high-frequency trades on users' behalf, executing trades twice daily using just 1% of each account's balance per session. This is funny. The company claimed this conservative trading method, combined with compound interest, would produce extraordinary returns while minimizing risk. That sounds like Forex, yeah? Something like that. Before the Forex people come for me, let me give you the updates. CBEX went as far as to declare that its AI algorithm never fails to predict market signals, presenting the system as a flawless, low-risk profit engine. These claims were devoid of transparency and offered no verifiable data. Yet they proved effective in gaining public trust. And trust me, people went for this, this move. They went for this, what they call financial wisdom. Okay, a very positive financial move. In addition to these unrealistic promises, CBEX strategically leveraged social proof and peer influence, yes, to attract new participants. Testimonials, whether genuine or from paid promoters, flooded social media platforms with claims of incredible profits and all. In the weeks leading up to the platform's collapse, investors publicly shared screenshots showing exponential, and I repeat, exponential growth in their account balances. Let's say from $1,000 to $10,000 and even as much as $85,000 in few days. Now, many users also posted photos of newly acquired assets. Various WhatsApp groups, various Telegram channels had this. Cars, motorcycles, commonly known as tricycles in Nigeria, household appliances allegedly purchased with CBEX earnings. These posts went viral across Nigerian Twitter, also known as X, Facebook, and TikTok, generating a wave of fear of missing out, that is the FOMO, and driving even more people into the scheme, making people nearly go mad because they were not part of this scheme. It was a Ponzi scheme. To further incentive expansion, CBEX employed a referral-based model. Participants were encouraged to invite friends, as every Ponzi scheme was, and family, receiving rewards such as bonus, trade signals, or commissions for each successful referral, just like every other Ponzi scheme. One widely circulated figure promised a 12% increase in trading capacity for every new recruit. This multi-level marketing approach effectively turned early investors into vocal promoters of the platform, amplifying its reach and credibility. You see somebody who comes to meet you and then begins to preach all sorts of things from A to Z, and kaboom, it's CBEX. Such recruitment tactics, marked by exaggerated returns, emotional testimonials, and social influence, are characteristics of fraudulent investment schemes or Ponzi schemes. Now, to reinforce investor confidence, CBEX carefully crafted an image of professionalism and community-centric engagement. That's what I would term it as. The platform's website and mobile app featured a modern kind of user-friendly interface that closely mirrored the appearance of legitimate cryptocurrency exchanges. This polished digital presentation was a key part of its strategy to appear credible and technologically advanced. They really got people there, trust me, they did. Financial transactions were structured to stimulate standard practices in the global crypto space. Investor deposits were primarily made in stable coins. Now, if you're conversant with cryptocurrency, you would know this, especially Tether in USDT, a cryptocurrency pegged to the US dollar, or in fiat USD. Withdrawals, on the other hand, were processed through recognized crypto exchanges. Reports indicate that CBEX operators funneled investor funds through an account on Bybit. You're conversant with that, yeah? A well-known global crypto trading platform, converting USDT into Nigerian Naira during cash outs. This use of hard currency and established blockchain infrastructure lends the scheme a sense of authenticity and operational transparency. Because when you come on Bybit, you meet someone who wants to readily sell his dollar and then or sell his dollar to Naira, and then you sell your dollar to them and then you get Naira back. It was as simple as that. Now, beyond the platform's interface, CBEX built a highly active online presence. It maintained a public Telegram group titled CBEX ST Investment Group, where administrators shared regular updates on trading activity, performance reports attributed to its so-called AI algorithm, and motivational messages aimed at reinforcing user engagement and skyrocketing referrals. This approach mirrored common tactics used in online Ponzi schemes, where community management serves both to sustain investor morale and suppress skepticism. Now, CBEX also operated an official X account, that's formerly known as Twitter, which garnered thousands of followers. Through this channel, it published promotional content that emphasized the platform's technological edge and reliability. One notable post read, "With CBEX, as you can see, you never have to worry about volatility. Let the AI handle your trading for you." Such messaging was designed to lull users into a false sense of security, portraying the platform as a risk-free financial solution underpinned by advanced artificial intelligence. Who wants to make money without going through risks? That's the first point. The overall branding and messaging were carefully engineered to project CBEX as a cutting-edge, globally connected fintech solution, kind of. Everything from the technical jargon to the professional layout was kind of orchestrated to reassure potential investors that they were participating in a sophisticated and legitimate opportunity that cannot be missed. However, however, the investment and its returns, the promises were glaringly inconsistent with the norms of a real world finance. As previously reported by outlets like Sahara Reporters and Punch Nigeria, CBEX's assurances of stable high yield profits rather despite market volatility were a major red flag commonly observed in pyramid and every or normal Ponzi schemes. Nevertheless, amid Nigeria's challenging economic climate, including high inflation and limited access to viable investment vehicles, many citizens were drawn to CBEX's promise of quick transformative gains. The platform's sleek presentation and the illusion of regulation and tech-backed security made it quite easier for people to suspend disbelief, fueling its rapid growth and eventual downfall. Now, let us look at what I will call the unraveling of CBEX and the exposure of the fraud that was deeply embedded in CBEX. Now, for several months, listen to this because lots of your relations and you might have fallen to this. For several months, CBEX operated with apparent stability, maintaining investor confidence through timely payouts to early adopters and cultivating widespread online enthusiasm. This strategy, typical of Ponzi schemes, generated significant buzz and lured thousands into a false sense of security. However, by early April 2025, this month, warning signs began to emerge, triggering concerns that the scheme was nearing its breaking point. Investor complaints began surfacing across social media platforms, particularly on Telegram and X, formerly known as Twitter, as users reported difficulties withdrawing their funds. That is the first sign of a Ponzi scheme that is going into extinction. You should have known this by now. These red flags drew comparisons to previous high-yield scams that collapsed under similar conditions. I told you before. According to Sahara Reporters, concerns of a potential Ponzi structure gained momentum as user frustration grew, and attempts to contact CBEX administrators were increasingly met with vague reassurances or silence. So it was a kind of wild goose chase for investors. On the 9th of April 2025, just few days ago, CBEX issued a sudden and alarming announcement. It goes thus: all withdrawals were being temporarily frozen due to a purported security breach, just like any other Ponzi scheme. The platform claimed its system had been attacked by hackers, and it promised a full restoration of affected accounts by April 15th. This explanation immediately raised suspicion among more experienced observers, as documented in other crypto-related fraud cases, such as the Plus token scandal and the AfriCrypt in South Africa, referenced in CoinDesk and Bloomberg reports. The invocation of phantom hackers is a well-worn tactic used by fraudulent platforms to delay inevitable collapse and to buy time before disappearing with the funds of investors. But despite the growing skepticism, CBEX's operators doubled down on their reassurances. Throughout the week following the withdrawal freeze, they repeatedly told users that funds were safe and that trading would resume soon. This pattern of stalling and misdirection is consistent with what the United States Securities and Exchange Commission (SEC) describes as a typical phase in the unwinding of Ponzi operations, where organizers make false claims of technical issues or external attacks to kind of pacify investors and to prevent panic. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, CBEX appeared to be orchestrating its end game. According to post-mortem accounts shared by former users and financial bloggers, the platform began crediting user accounts with unexpected bonuses or phantom profits. These figures, while visually impressive, could not be withdrawn. Instead, CBEX informed users that in order to access these bonuses, they would first need to generate an equivalent volume of trades, a tactic that effectively and eventually trapped investor funds and prolonged the illusion of what I'll call solvency. Because when these people begin to go extinct, they will tell you need to perform tasks, you need to refer like a number of people, XYZ people and all. Despite mounting rumors that the scheme was about to collapse, CBEX administrators continued to issue statements as late as April 14th, just one day before the promised restoration of withdrawals. They posted messages insisting that everything remained under control and that all pending transactions would be processed by Tuesday, April 15th. Okay, now, but as with many Ponzi schemes, that promise was never fulfilled. By mid-April, let's say, the platform had gone silent, all right, leaving tens of thousands of Nigerian investors in a kind of financial limbo. All right. Now, let me go straight to the point that you have been waiting for: the final collapse of CBEX. All right. The disintegration and the last ditch extortion of CBEX. Now, the CBEX fraud reached its catastrophic climax on the 14th day of April, on Monday, 2025. That morning, users logged into their accounts to discover highly irregular activity. The platform's supposed AI-driven trading algorithm had suddenly begun executing trades using 100% of their capital, an extreme deviation from its previously advertised strategy of trading just 1% per session. This alarming shift set off a wave of panic amongst investors. By that afternoon, a second round of full balance trades had been executed, and virtually all account balances reflected a 100% loss. CBEX's interface showed users that their entire portfolios had been wiped out, as if the AI had suffered massive, irreversible losses on the market. However, as analysts and victims later concluded, this trading loss was likely a cover for the final siphoning of investor funds by the platform's operators. According to Sahara reporters, in April, this is a kind of classic Ponzi tactic that simulates a kind of catastrophic loss to obscure the fact that the funds have already been stolen. According to Sahara reporters, they insinuated this. Now, in the immediate aftermath, CBEX's Telegram group, previously active with trading updates and community chatter, was abruptly locked down. Admins disabled comments, effectively silencing users and cutting off avenues for collective response as panic and confusion spread. When some users were finally able to reach administrators or receive updates, they were met with the final lie in CBEX's fraudulent saga. The administrators claimed the platform's AI algorithm had been compromised in a cyber attack, resulting in the devastating trades and total asset loss. But rather than offer any real compensation, CBEX unveiled what many people quickly recognized as a scam within the scam. A so-called account verification fee required for victims to qualify for a kind of refund. Now, let me explain this very well. The refund scheme demanded additional payments from already defrauded users, approximately $100, which is like equal to like 130,000 naira, for those with account balances under $8,000 and $200 for accounts exceeding that threshold. In a circulated video message, an announcer stated, I quote, "If you have below $8,000 in your CBEX account, you have to pay $100 to withdraw. If you have above $8,000, then you will have to pay $200 to withdraw." It sounded funny. Other users reported being told that the threshold was actually $1,000, but the core condition remained. No one would receive their supposed refunds without first paying a new fee. Now, this pay to withdraw kind of rule or requirement was widely condemned as the final betrayal, effectively holding victims' money hostage. Now, according to reports from Punch Nigeria and several independent tech bloggers, they noted in days following the tactic mirrored extortion and the tactics used in collapsed platforms like the BitConnect and the War Token were all scam operators and their attempts to extract a final round of cash from desperate investors under the guise of redemption. Now, for some people, this proposal was the final nail in the coffin. Delusioned and outraged, they questioned why a legitimate company would demand more deposits to release previously earned funds, while a few desperate victims considered paying this money in hope of recovery. The majority recognized the scheme for what it was, a carefully orchestrated financial trap, ending in a textbook Ponzi collapse, like an orchestrated Ponzi collapse, or let's say an orchestrated Ponzi scheme disappearance or extinction. Now, CBEX has disappeared. Let's look at the aftermath of a collapsing Ponzi scheme, just like CBEX. By 15th April 2025, you all know that date, right? You all know the day, right? Just like today, the CBEX platform had completely imploded. Its website and trading app abruptly went offline, while all customer support channels ceased operations. Users who attempted to log in were met with blank screens or error messages, as the platform's internet domain vanished and its app became non-functional. The abrupt disappearance confirmed what many had feared. The operators had pulled the plug and had fled with the funds belonging to investors. So what had been marketed as a sophisticated AI-powered fintech platform was ultimately exposed as a fraudulent operation. Despite its sleek interface and claims of regulatory compliance, CBEX was nothing more than a modern-day Ponzi scheme. Importantly, signs of trouble had surfaced long before the final collapse if they had listened or if they had paid attention. In April 2024, the Hong Kong Securities and Futures Commission (SFC) issued a public warning, naming the CBEX Group as a suspected fraudulent virtual asset platform following multiple complaints about withdrawal issues, according to the SFC alert list of April 2024. That same year, Nigeria's Securities and Exchange Commission (SEC) placed CBEX on its caution list of unregistered investment operations. However, these red flags failed to gain mainstream attention, overshadowed by the platform's marketing blitz and promises of high returns. It wasn't until CBEX froze withdrawals, one of the classic indicators of a Ponzi explosion or implosion, that the full extent of the fraud became undeniable. Now, let's look at global reactions of people and backlash and all. Now, the collapse of CBEX sparked immediate responses from financial regulators, both within Nigeria and internationally. Now, in Nigeria, following the crash, Nigeria's Security and Exchange Commission reiterated that CBEX had always operated illegally, although not naming CBEX directly. Mr. Emotomi Agama, the SEC's Director of Registration, stressed the dangers of unregistered schemes, stating, "If it is not registered, it is illegal." He warned Nigerians against investment platforms offering unrealistic returns outside the purview of regulatory oversight. According to archived warnings from the SEC, CBEX had been flagged prior to its collapse, but the alert received little attention at that time. After the scam's exposure, the SEC faced public criticism for failing to intervene earlier. In response, officials pointed to newly enacted legislation that grants the Commission expanded authority to act against digital investment fraud. Mr. Agama emphasized that under Nigeria's updated investment law, the SEC can now investigate, prosecute, and shut down unlicensed platforms, including influencers and celebrities who promote them. That is according to Punch Nigeria's publication of April 2025. Now let's take a look at the legislative action. What has been done about them? The Nigerian Senate reacted swiftly, with lawmakers calling for stricter enforcement across the crypto space. The chairman of the Senate Committee on Capital Market declared that the era of fraudulent investment schemes must come to an end in the country. Under Nigeria's revised law, individuals found promoting Ponzi schemes now face minimum fines of 20 million naira and up to 10 years in prison. Now, let us look at the international responses, what Canada, China, and even Hong Kong has said, and their pushback against the false claims of CBEX. Now, let's start with Canada. The false licensing claims that have been debunked by Canada and all. Now, throughout its operation, CBEX falsely invoked Canada's name to protect legitimacy. However, Canadian authorities had no involvement with the platform until after the scheme collapsed. Following media investigations in April 2025, this month, it became evident that no Canadian financial regulator had ever approved, licensed, or even recognized CBEX. The Canadian High Commission in Nigeria, along with provincial securities regulators, confirmed that CBEX was absent from all official registries, including Canada's public business registries and financial compliance databases, such as the FinTrack, that is, which means abbreviation for Financial Transactions and Reports Analysis Center of Canada. This revelation exposed CBEX's claim of Canadian incorporation and oversight as entirely fabricated. According to journalists who contacted Canadian officials, they were told that Canadian regulators regularly issue alerts about unregistered or fraudulent foreign investment schemes. Under Canadian law, any entity soliciting investments from Canadian residents must, and I say must, be registered with the appropriate securities authority, a criterion CBEX never met. However, because the scheme primarily targeted Nigerian investors and not Canadians, Canadian authorities had limited jurisdiction to intervene directly, beyond issuing disclaimers and correcting public misinformation. Ultimately, the most significant Canadian response was the official disproof of CBEX's purported legal status, which went further to show how the scam leveraged Canada's international reputation without its consent. Had Nigerian investors verified CBEX's licensing through public tools like the Canadian Securities Administrators, National Registration Search, or FinTrack's MSB registry, they would have found no evidence of the company's legitimacy, a crucial due diligence and a crucial step that was unfortunately overlooked by lots of people. Nevertheless, the SEC, that is the SEC in Nigeria, did their due diligence and flagged off this particular Ponzi scheme. In Hong Kong, regulators took even more decisive action, as at early April 2024, the Hong Kong Securities and Futures Commission (SFC) added CBEX to its official alert list, warning the public that it was a suspicious virtual asset platform likely operating fraudulently. That is according to the alert list of the SFC as of April 2024. The SFC advisory explicitly cautioned investors to avoid CBEX, grouping it with other flagged crypto schemes under investigation. The commission also collaborated with the Hong Kong Police Force's Cyber Security Division to block CBEX-related domains from operating within the territory. These early interventions by Hong Kong authorities suggest that red flags were detected well in advance, possibly due to CBEX's use of Hong Kong's base infrastructure or reports from residents experiencing withdrawal issues. The proactive measures taken by the SFC and local law enforcement agencies highlighted a kind of robust regulatory response to the growing problem of cross-border crypto fraud. Together, the responses from Canada, China, and Hong Kong revealed a clear pattern. CBEX had intentionally misappropriated the credibility of respected jurisdictions to mask its fraudulent nature. While these countries ultimately issued warnings and clarifications, their efforts came after significant damage had already been done, illustrating the urgent need for early investor education and real-time international cooperation in combating financial scams. Now, there was a response from the Chinese media, all right, and I'm going to take that response. I'm going to see, and we would go through it and peruse it, all right. Now, in the days following CBEX's implosion, Chinese language media also picked up the story, drawing attention to how the scheme had misappropriated Chinese institutional branding. Notably, the South China Morning Post, that's the SCMP, reported on the China-Beijing Equity Exchange's official disassociation of the crypto platform that had hijacked its name. The wider crackdown on cryptocurrency scams, driven by concerns about illegal capital flight and unregulated crypto activity, leaving the country's financial ecosystem very vulnerable. That is according to the South China Morning Post, SCMP, their post of April 2024. Authorities in China made it clear that the Beijing-based CBEX had no connection to the Nigerian platform and warned investors to be very wary of crypto schemes misusing state-owned trademarks to boost credibility. The incident was treated by Chinese regulators as yet another case of rising wave of cross-border crypto fraud, with CBEX lumped in alongside other deceptive foreign operations. Although these warnings came too late to prevent Nigerian losses, they demonstrated that CBEX had triggered international red flags well before its dramatic downfall. Now let us take a look at the public outcry and the human cost of the CBEX fraud and all. While foreign regulators analyzed the fraud from afar, Nigerian victims bore the emotional and financial devastation firsthand. CBEX's collapse on April 15, 2025 caused a wave of grief and panic across the country as thousands of investors realized that they had lost their life savings. On Nigerian TikTok and X, formerly known as Twitter, emotional videos quickly went viral, turning the platform into a real-time archive of public despair. One heart-wrenching clip came from a user known as Pretty Nikki Babe, who recorded herself crying while captioning the video, "CBEX don't ruin my savings." The clip, shared widely, became an official kind of epitaph for the collapsed platform. Another viral post featured a young man sobbing uncontrollably, saying, "Guys, they said I should check my balance now." Another post featured somebody on the hospital bed in drips. As the shock wore off, anger took the center stage. In Ibadan, a group of furious investors stormed a CBEX office located in the Oke-Ado area, hoping to confront remaining staff or to get answers. Finding the office nearly deserted, the mob ransacked the premises, taking out chairs, desks, computers, even air conditioners. One Facebook video viewed tens of thousands of times showed men yanking AC units off walls while shouting, "We want our money back." This is according to the Daily Trust publication of April 2025 and the Facebook viral post of April 2025. This chaotic retaliation went further to show the desperation of the victims, many of whom had sold personal assets or borrowed money to invest. For some people, material compensation, no matter how symbolic, felt like the only recourse after the collapse of the CBEX platform. Similar events occurred in Lagos, where investors gathered at a location expecting a good news announcement from CBEX officials. None arrived actually. Instead, what followed was a tense standoff between hopeful investors and an empty building, showing just how far the scheme had reached and how deeply it had betrayed its community. These real-world consequences make it very, very clear that CBEX's downfall was not just a financial story, but a human tragedy. The widespread public outrage, viral social media reactions, and spontaneous protests all reflect the scale of deception and the painful lessons many Nigerians are still processing in its wake. So, the collapse of CBEX was not just a financial implosion, it was a shattering personal disaster for thousands of Nigerians. Individual stories of loss began pouring in from across the country, revealing the far-reaching damage left in the scam's wake. In Oyo State, a young woman named Bolarinwa, recently returned from Libya, was captured on camera sobbing outside CBEX's Ibadan office. As reported by Punch newspapers and Arise News, she explained through tears that she had entrusted the platform with every kobo she managed to save during her time abroad. Many online voices urged compassion, cautioning against ridicule. One user posted on X, "Reach out to friends and family, console them, don't mock them. This kind of loss can drive people to dark thoughts." This was according to the Twitter post as posted by Nigerians in April 2025 this month. Mental health advocates also weighed in, reminding the public that financial trauma can lead to emotional collapse, even suicide. But alongside the empathy came anger and exasperation. So Nigerians fell for another scam again, according to one commenter under one of these posts. One particularly notable reaction, though controversially written, was from the People's Gazette, and it described people as greedy Nigerians losing their savings, a phrase that ignited backlash and sparked national debate over victim blaming. This was according to the People's Gazette publication of this month in 2025. Critics argued that the term overlooked the complex motivations behind many victims' choices. While CBEX's offer to double capital within days may have screamed too good to be true, many investors weren't driven by greed so much as by financial desperation or misplaced trust. As one victim told Channels TV, "I wasn't trying to get rich, I just wanted to turn 300,000 into something that could cover my children's school fees." Now, Bashir Ahmad, a former presidential aide, added to the discourse, writing on X that the SEC did warn the public, yet our people still went ahead and invested their money. This was according to Bashir Ahmed's post on X on the 16th of April 2025. Now, the financial toll of CBEX's implosion has been staggering, while the full extent remains difficult to quantify due to the informal nature of the scheme. Estimates and testimonials suggest over 15,000 Nigerians may have invested in the platform. This is according to the People's Gazette publication of this month, 2025. Losses varied wildly. According to investigative reports, some participants invested modestly between $300 and $500, that is around 400,000 naira, while early high rollers reinvested profits and eventually lost over 100,000 US dollars. That is according to the publication of the Premium Times of April 2025. For many, this represented a lifetime's worth of savings. A survey by Tech Cabal found that a large segment of users lost between 500,000 naira and 2 million naira, respectively. That's roughly $650 to like $2,600. These amounts constitute life-altering sums in a country where the average annual income falls far below that range. That is according to the publication of the Tech Cabal in April this year. Now, CBEX's financial carnage also exposed big gaps in the Nigerian financial literacy, regulatory enforcement, and public skepticism toward digital investment schemes. However, in its aftermath, there appears to be a hard-earned lesson. Quick money promises almost always lead to slow burning tragedies. Don't forget, In the wake of CBEX's implosion, analysts estimate that the total financial loss to Nigerian investors likely runs into the billions of naira. According to Daily Post Nigeria, CBEX is just the latest in a recurring wave of online investment scams that have collectively cost Nigerians billions over the past decade. This was according to the Daily Post publication of April 2025. Even conservative estimates paint a grim picture. Of course, if just 10,000 investors lost an average of 200,000 naira each, that alone would amount to like 2 billion naira, approximately like 2.6 million US dollars. But the actual figure may be significantly higher. Reports suggest that wealthy individuals, business cooperatives, and even community leaders invested tens of millions of naira each. One source described savings worth hundreds of thousands of dollars vanishing in a single day. That is according to the Premium Times publication of April 2025. Some insiders believe that CBEX's upper bound losses could reach into the low tens of millions of dollars, rivaling some of the most damaging crypto scams on the continent. While smaller in scale than the infamous Nigeria collapse, which wiped out an estimated $50 to $100 million in 2016, CBEX's damage is still deeply felt. That is according to Quartz Africa's publication in 2017. Much of the money lost came from personal savings, small business capitals, student loans, and pooled family funds. Resources that might have been used to start businesses, pay tuition, or support households in a very tough economy. So now, what are the broader consequences? The economic consequences, emotional consequences, and maybe systemic consequences. Beyond the sheer financial hit, CBEX's collapse triggered serious economic ripple effects, particularly among Nigeria's vulnerable youth demography. Many victims were young professionals, university students, and recent returnees from the diaspora who had redirected funds meant for education, resettlement, or entrepreneurship into what they believed was a legitimate financial opportunity. As a result, numerous small businesses were shelved, construction projects were halted, and tuition plans were abandoned. The human cost has been very, very immense. Now, according to Punch newspaper's reports, the report said that several victims have shown signs of clinical depression, with some facing strained family relationships over convincing loved ones to invest. This was according to the Punch publication of April 2025. For many, CBEX didn't just take their money. It shattered trust, strained credit relationships, and introduced lasting psychological trauma. Each high-profile scam further erodes public confidence in digital financial products, no matter how legitimate. According to one Twitter user, he said, CBEX didn't just steal our money, it sent us back to square one. Scared of every app that talks about investing. This is according to the X publication or post of this user. This erosion of trust presents a challenge for regulators and financial institutions alike. It risks setting back progress on financial inclusion, particularly among populations already hesitant to engage with banks or fintech platforms. For Nigeria's economy, where digital finance is viewed as a path to broader participation, the damage is both material and philosophical, if you ask me. The collapse of CBEX is not an isolated incident. It is merely the latest entry in a long-running saga of Ponzi schemes that have thrived in Nigeria's economically vulnerable environment, if you ask me. Chronic unemployment, soaring inflation, and limited access to formal credit have created the perfect storm for desperate individuals seeking financial relief. In this climate, the promise of quick and outsized returns, no matter how unrealistic, can appear not just attractive, but very, very necessary. This explains why Ponzi schemes continue to proliferate even after repeated public disasters. In 2016, Nigeria captivated over 3 million Nigerians with the promise of 30% monthly returns before abruptly shutting down, leaving billions of naira in losses. That is according to the publication of Quartz Africa in 2017. Following that came schemes like Ultimate Settler, Twinkers, and MBA Forex, each offering flashy returns and each ending in collapse. The CBEX implosion in April 2025 now joins this ignoble list. While the full financial toll is still being assessed, its effects are very, very clear. Cleared out bank accounts, assets sold off to cover debts, and dreams postponed or shattered. For every statistic lies a human story of loss. Savings meant for school fees, house construction, or health expenses that disappeared in a digital puff of smoke. Ultimately, CBEX has reinforced two painful but essential lessons: the critical importance of financial literacy and the need for more proactive regulation and enforcement. The public must be taught not only how to invest, but also what red flags to avoid. And regulators must not only warn, but act swiftly enough to prevent scams from metastasizing. Unfortunately, for many CBEX victims, these lessons came too late rather. So this is my conclusion, and this is my own reflection on the CBEX scandal. The CBEX saga is a sobering reflection of both systemic vulnerabilities and societal desperation. It highlights a deeper issue, which is many Nigerians are not just greedy, they are financially trapped. In a country where millions earn less than kind of 50,000 naira a month, where interest rates on formal loans are exorbitant, and where youth unemployment remains staggeringly high, the appeal of quick money schemes becomes understandable. Even if misguided, blaming victims wholesale for falling for CBEX misses the bigger picture. Yes, there were red flags. Yes, some ignored official warnings. But for many, this was not about reckless gambling. It was about hope. CBEX sold that hope. Hope of escaping poverty, hope of paying rent, hope of financing school, and then hope of starting a business. Okay, that hope was manipulated and monetized by faceless fraudsters hiding behind a sleek app and fake Canadian credential. So what's even more troubling is that CBEX is unlikely to be the last, unless structural issues like lack of access to financial education, poor enforcement of security laws, and weak prosecution of white-collar crime are addressed. Other schemes will rise in its place, rebranded and repackaged for a new wave of victims. This is why we need a national financial literacy campaign supported by schools, churches, media houses, and government agencies. We need stronger whistleblower incentives, tighter regulation of social media financial influencers, and collaboration across borders to track crypto-based frauds. Above all, we need to stop normalizing the culture of shortcuts to wealth. As a nation, we must foster a long-term mindset around money, one that prioritizes value creation, patience, and diligence over instant gratification. Scams like CBEX prey on a dream that is real, the dream of financial stability. It's time we build systems that help people achieve that dream the right way. Okay, CBEX was not just a financial crime, it was a societal failure, and it must be a wake-up call, not just to regulators, but to all of us. Thank you for staying this far. If you enjoyed our updates, please like our videos, share them. Don't forget to drop comments for us in the comment section. If you are just coming, please subscribe to this channel and then tap the notification bell so that you won't be late when I drop new updates. See you next time. Bye.